Welcome everybody to Dr. Zoo. We are on the go and let's just see how we go. This is Dr. Zoo for Thursday, 26th of March 2026. Welcome everybody, welcome all the new people on board. Fantastic. Look at this, we've got some bit of news here on the chat program here today. If I'm getting acknowledgement that people can hear me loud and clear. There's been a couple of more technical issues, but just give me a little thumbs up there, somebody out there in Zucoin world. Fantastic, thank you. Popular Mind, how good's that? Well, it looks like the boys have been removing the guest numbers so that I can actually now use your pseudo names, your pseudo anonymous secret names, which look pretty popular actually, pretty good. Timid Stranger, how good's that? So when I refer to anything coming up now, I can go straight to that and you'll know exactly who you are. I won't have a clue what's going on. Good to go. Well, fantastic people. This is an interesting one today. I had some things mapped out and ready to go, and that's exactly what we're going to do, is talk about a couple of subjects. Fantastic Brisbane, good to see you on board. Welcome there. Awesome stuff. Now, we've got a little bit of a thing here, a question, which was the original guest, 148164773. So that's before the turnover from yesterday. Very professional podcast, although I do miss the politically incorrect snippets. Don't worry about that. There's a time and a place for all the political things that I like to talk about and throw them in a few grenades here and there, so that won't be lost. Same with the incorrect everything, basically. So we'll leave that there. Now we've got 23rd of March still showing. Mysterious newbie. We're going to need a little bit more info than that, because 23rd of March still could be for anything. It was a big day, the 23rd of March, back in the year 1645. But I'm not sure whether you're referring to that or you've got something else in mind. But let us please expand on that so I can get the boys and have a look at what you are chatting about. Now, today, first up, we had a lot of people come back through on some of the things about the technology bits and pieces, and the strategies that you roll out and how you we get our heads on these things and why we take the directions and roads that we do. And I did allude to the Steve Jobs scenario last episode about Apple and how you can take your time because you want to get it right. And even if you do think you get it right, you can have all sorts of consequences later on. And today I thought, well, it's pretty well on the money when you look at the news that's coming out of Los Angeles in the last 24 hours. And I'm thinking and referring to people, the Mark Zuckerberg, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, those little products. Because it's quite relevant that despite the huge successes and the massive returns that Meta as a company has made, which is listed on NASDAQ, code META, over the journey, and you've got to remember this started from basically a guy that wasn't happy with his girlfriend, knew enough about coding to sort of pull things together. And we've all seen, or most of us would have seen, the scenario where in the Social Network, the movie, and the Twinklevoss twins and all the dramas that went on, and the creation of Facebook. So there's a bit of luck how it was done. There's a bit of angst in there because he wasn't happy, and then there's a bit of intuitive success as to what was built and advisors coming around to build the database. Now there's no question at all that it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. Now, he took a while to pull it together. The Facebook didn't make any money, and it certainly came about where there was very much massive viral adoption. Now, I'm suggesting that despite we're doing things in reverse, it's going to be a lot more productive and longer term value proposition for our wonderful community, the Zucoiners, with the ability to get the tech right following the Steve Jobs scenario, and then following it up with the marketing and the mass adoption and how that works. And that goes the same for all of our products, because you're going to see some pretty fantastic stuff, not just the way in which everybody's going to be delighted with the relaunch of Zootopia next month, because that in itself is a fully major program that really is a standalone in itself as a marketplace and crypto exchange. So it's quite phenomenal as you see that unravel itself, particularly with the way in which we've structured it, that there's no custodialship and there's certainly no of either money or coins in a world first. That is a world first, everybody. And that goes across the board with any of the great exchanges that were created and going right back since the inception of corporations and companies in about the year 1500. So I say that because if you tick that box, which is fantastic, you'll see that, and you guys will have a great time, and you'll be trading your hearts out, and you'll be able to go 24/7, and you'll be able to create the marketplace that you want. That is where those that have been, as we are, the early adopters, and we've come out and you've put some money on the table and you're risking it, and you get the opportunity to take and obviously for those of us that are longer term, it's all about the value and the way in which we want to see some big increases. Those increases include, of course, my mission is the US $1,000 to get the Gulfstream G800. Another look at that today, by the way, and it's magnificent. Magnificent. So that's where that wants to be with the Zootopia. Now, hiding behind the scenes, whilst we've been busy keeping people up to date with Zucoins in its own right, and SplitChain, our wonderful CTO, Robert, creating history with the way in which that's structured and how that's going to have a major impact on long-term propositions, obviously with the Zoo tokens or tokenization we talk about. You then have Zukaz, the little sleeper. And Zukaz, particularly in the last many weeks, really is accelerating as a powerhouse of the combo that it started back in 2019, of course, won some innovation business awards and marketing awards, and has been recognised by its peers. And I looked at that we're really ahead of the game. We really are. I mean, you mightn't think that right here and right now, but certainly Zukaz will unleash the beast. Now, treat the Zootopia with the way in which you guys are going to put your coins for sale or put orders to buy. And good luck to the buyers, because they're the ones that are going to be the astute ones and take advantage of it long term. But if you look at let's call the original, which is what we all have, the Zucoin, and that is the vanilla. Let's call that a vanilla Zucoin. That's the genesis. That's the beginning of the journey for all of us to see some output now in terms of that quantitative theory of money formula we rave on about, which then is demand. So we get the tech right, we smash out the Zootopia, we're full throttle, we accelerate the mass marketing, and coins get absorbed and price takes care of itself. And that's where, people, we leave Bitcoin and Ethereum dead in the water, because they don't go anywhere from here. You know, I did a little analysis the other night. I was a bit bored, and I produced this little analysis on what AI thought about the three scenarios, or the three blockchains, and in our case, the SplitChain. How did it see that future prospectivity in terms of, what does it do? How does it do the growth or the competition between us? Now, I've always compared Zucoins, you can see it on the website, pound for pound against Bitcoin. Ethereum, to me, that's a bit of a joke. That was a Vitalik wet dream, and trying to catch up and create something. And certainly they've made a lot of money. They've made truckloads of money, the promoters and all the rest of it. You're talking billions of dollars. And then they add these smart contracts to the top, and that was the differential between it and Bitcoin. But at the end of the day, it is an ill-thought-out project as much as Satoshi's was and still is today. So I did a little bit of analysis. I wanted to just get a really heads up. And I'm not talking one AI agent here. I'm talking, this is cross-referenced against 7 AI agents. Right? So it came back and looked at the entire concepts as to how you would handle trillions of transactions in comparison with Visa and MasterCard. Now, Visa alone, as we know, processes hundreds of billions of transactions yearly, somewhere in the order of 293 billion in the recent financial period, where the throughput is when we talk about that, we talk about transactions per second, but it's still struggling, even though it's centralised. It's still, that firepower is not necessarily there because it's still pushing the upwards of 5,700 or 6,000 transactions per second. You'll see on my Zucoins.org that the CTO, he talks in the sense of 100,000 plus transactions per second, which is absolutely mind-blowing for a decentralised project that has the capability to scale. Now, the AI agents came back and said, look, as a layer one, forget about all the add-on projects that try and increase and overcome the so-called blockchain trilemma. It's said that the structure as of today and where it's heading, and we haven't even hit problems of quantum computing yet, it's going to stuff up a lot of these positions where they're so-called protected or not protected in the sense of the private keys and seed phrases and all that. But it's saying that it's in an insurmountable mathematical and architectural massive problem for any of these projects like Bitcoin or Ethereum to even come anywhere close in minute percentages of the Visa MasterCard scales. Because that hundreds of billions annually accumulates to trillions over years. And remember people, that in the case of the blockchain, that data doesn't go away. It accumulates. It continues to fester on the big, as I say, my saying, the Great Wall of Bitcoin. Now, the basis upon which this analysis was done really was about, can Bitcoin compete with us? And us is the Zucoin community and SplitChain. And the answer is an emphatic no. It cannot mathematically scale. Bitcoin's proof of work is designed and enforces a single sequential chain with strict parameters. Now, there are fixed block constraints, 10-minute blocks, and these average effectively 4 megabyte maximum size, average transactions 250 to 500 bytes, with a practical transactions per second of 7 transactions tops per second, with a real-world average of about 4. That's never ever going to assist Bitcoin in delivering the utility and outcomes of wanting to take on real-world assets worth $300 trillion a year. They are dead in the water. Now, to reach 10,000 transactions per second, right? Remember people, we're talking 100,000 already with the structure of the split chain. Bitcoin's going to need 1,400 times X larger blocks, which can't happen. Now, it's because it's got full historical replication, so that every transaction is there forever. Now, you don't need to be Einstein on this either. I mean, the great man would have said, you've got to be crazy. I mean, that at trillions of transactions, the cumulative effect of that is mind-blowing. Just the thought of trying to keep that going is and we talked about this. We talked about the energy consumption. We've talked about the size of computers and the algorithms and how much it's going to slow down. And therefore, if they're not making money, which they're not, even at 70-odd thousand today, they're still not making money. They're underwater. This could come to a grinding halt. And whatever money you've got in Bitcoin, that's it. Gone. Gonski. Now, the analysis was done the same with Ethereum. Now, it can have modest improvements. It's trying to fork. It's trying to do all sorts of things, and Vitalik's playing around with it. But based on its throughput and the gas limits and limitations in terms of fees and costs. Now, remember, we don't have fees and costs. We have fractionalisation. Not a single piece of money changes hands to any transactional form whatsoever in SplitChain or Zucoins. And Vitalik's in the same dilemma. This is why the dilemma situation came about. But when you look at SplitChain, people, and you want to plan for the future, which is what we are doing. Now, somebody can't hear something. We've got Pondering Harmony. Let's just check over here. Can you hear me now? Everything okay on that front? Let's just see if we get a response on this front, people. It's saying on my end, it's boring ahead. That the sound is certainly boring ahead. Not sure whether that's of any difference there. Let's just tweak that a bit more. No, they're fine. Everything's okay. You can hear everything. That's all right. It has to be your own computers at this stage or your internet connections, people. So I won't change a thing. I'll leave it as it is. But I just came back to the architecture and the design. We specifically considered these scenarios back in 2018. I was looking at the original spec papers to produce SplitChain and Zucoins, and obviously the marketing strategies, which leads into Zootopia. Not Zootopia, but rather Zukaz. Now, Zootopia came out of left field. That was really a means to an end so that none of us, we minimise our chances of losing anything based on some dimwit running an exchange. And that's the intention of Zootopia. If I lose money, you lose money, because none of us are going to be safe on any of these exchanges. And the freezing that goes on, and I saw the other day that Dubai is now freezing some more money because of the way in which the war over there is bubbling along. The Iranians say that they haven't spoken to the big fella. The big fella says he's spoken to somebody. But I suppose when you wipe out and vaporise half the hierarchy of the Iranian regime, you'd be wondering if you're speaking to the cleaner. But someone keeps pressing buttons there, and there must be a emergency button presser, or maybe they're using AI. Now, that'd be funny. Wouldn't that be amazing? There's actually no regime in Iran running the situation, just a bunch of computers on backup power sitting at the back with a generator and connected up, and the AI is running the entire war effort on behalf of Iran with one instructions. And that would be, the AI would be instructed for a protocol at the beginning to follow the Quran. The Quran is the religious book of Islam, and in that book it says basically destroy everything. So I can actually give you the direct quotes in the Quran on that, by the way. People don't want to read the Quran, but those that do will read it properly. It's a bit of a nightmare. But a bit of incentive there for those that are hanging in there with that. On that basis, you get 72 virgins if it all goes pear-shaped, which is for some might be a real bonus, but handling 72 new women, geez, that's a big ask. But there you go. That's the incentive. You get 72 of them. Now, where was I? Well, back to these split chain scenario of the caching. I'm not going to go over it again today with the firepower of having the last transaction and balance in the caching, the firepower that we are working, that we can handle trillions of transactions, because that is where the Zoo tokens comes into play based on the original architecture that we set out many years ago, that we wanted to not have the problems of growth, not have the problems of mass adoption, and certainly allow a decentralised program that is not reliant upon any founders. Now, we're at the point now where everybody in Zucoin world can start to, break loose, shake a leg, get out there, market as much as what you want to do, talk to each other directly through the mechanisms of the peer-to-peer firepower that you have to transact, fractionalise it, and very, very soon, just around the corner, we get, obviously with Zootopia up and about, then you can knock yourselves out and enjoy the freedom of 24 hours, 7-day instant trading, which is a game changer. Globally, we'll introduce more and more through the dumbed down versions of the wallets, and we've already got people producing a new wallet which is designed for the Zukaz hunt. You'll be blown away with that. I'm not exaggerating. I saw some more snippets of it today, and I tell you what, these young people, they've got their head right on it. It's it'll certainly give a shake, which I'll circle back to in a minute, to Meta, the great Mark Zuckerberg, and how, ironically, the combo between Zucoin's fractionalisation, tokenization, and Zukaz is going to really give it a shake in terms of global marketing, benefits to consumers, and especially now. You look at now with the oil price and the effect that's having on filling your car. I mean, how good is that Chris Bowen? I mean, he is a unit. Is he a unit? Chris Bowen. I mean, there you go. You wouldn't give him a job in a brothel handing out condoms. I mean, fair income. We've come all this way, and now we're worried about the diesel reserves are declining because we don't expect the big black swan coming out of the Middle East. We talked about it. All the little swanettes, they're all floating out there. And what do we got? We got a fuel problem. Fuel problem. Prices going up. Government doesn't want to let loose on the excise taxes because that'll absolutely decimate the budget. It's already blown out. Good old Jimbo. Jimbo's out there. He's struggling away trying to work out how to cover the $1 trillion debt because interest rates are going up. Inflation's going to hit us 5%. He's got no idea. He cannot even manage writing the numbers on the back of an envelope. And guess what? You and everybody else suffers. We all suffer. So as a result of that suffering, what do? Well, I'm suggesting people, I'm making a big thing of this, that our time might be just absolutely smack bang on because you release the decentralised structure that we've built. You don't need to rely on Dr. Zoo down the road. The open source code will allow common developers because the way in which the code was built is open to everybody. And all of a sudden, you've got people creating wealth, building wealth, and doing things on their own bat because the highway that I talk about is being built. Rock solid, 8-10 lanes, not going to move for a long time, and people come into it. And that leads me into, because of that, the beginnings of the design. The design work was the hard part. Yes, taken time, and every bit of time that we've used up improving things and ticking boxes, where nobody in the entire Zucoin SplitChain team regrets it for 1 second. The instructions are to get it right because that's how Steve Jobs did it in the end. And people will make and deliver and share the products that are delivered. But look what's happened with Meta. Now, I come back to Meta because of this. Here you have a young guy, wet behind the ears, certainly falls into, billionaire status, no doubt creates a product that he'd modified and fine-tuned. And in fact, I would say, when you really look at it, he really just, as I said, he was the second mouse that came out and got the cheese because Murdoch's crew who invested in MySpace really had a earlier version, but not as interactive and not as exciting for the college students that were running around and thought they got a free ride on this thing called Facebook by putting their details up and communicating. It became a communication mechanism, and much like the way in which TikTok is fired up. But at the end of the day, all of these things relied on advertising. And you can see that if you go through, and none of you, well, you may decide to check out the SEC statements and the reports issued by Meta. But if you look at the top line, it's you've got $201 billion in revenue in 2025 into Facebook, and that comes from Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger. So the community supports that driving mechanism of the old story, big database, pound the database with all this stuff that's coming through, and Mark Zuckerberg makes all this money. But that's where it starts and finishes. That's where it starts and finishes. Now, there's a question here from Grateful Being. Any developers building on the SplitChain yet? My word, they are. We have a couple of developers that are building some wonderful, interesting stuff. And they are engineering out their projects very excitedly. So time will tell when that's going to hit its straps. But look, I might just give you a little taste of this because it's interesting. It's interesting what happens. If you take the new Zukaz app, which is another upgrade version from the original successful stuff we tested, where people went hunting and collecting and all those wonderful things. What we've got now is a fully integrated Zukaz app that allows you to download a rebadged, if you like, Zucoin wallet. It's got all the features that you see in Zucoin. It allows merchants to come on board and either promote through direct marketing, that is, they put the value proposition directly to you, if you as a consumer so want it. That is, if you want this merchant to be your favourite, and I always use the coffee shop example next door. If you say you want to get offers, then that can directly come from that coffee shop. Now, there's two ways a coffee shop can now do it through the app. One is it can quite simply create a hunt, which is a three-dimensional cup of coffee, and it can now add a dollar value to that and say that voucher is worth $10. Now that is your bread and butter type voucher. It can go onto a map, people can go looking for it, collect it, and there is the voucher, and then go and redeem it. That's all done through the Zukaz app. That was the concepts of the version 1. Let's call this version 2. Because of the firepower now of the fractionalization and Zucoins, there can be a contract that's added to that particular voucher, and that becomes a Zoo token. So I hope you understand that. You've got the vanilla voucher, like you've got the vanilla Zucoin, and you have a basic voucher with a value, and you redeem it. Now you upgrade the voucher to a token, a Zoo token. And that comes with a fraction of a coin as well, and that can be verifiable in the SplitChain. So the ownership, once the merchant issues it, can be verified in the SplitChain. That is already a development program on the back of SplitChain. It works beautiful. So we've tested that now in a coin environment. We do a 3-dimensional coin, we throw it out there, and we press the confirm button on the coin, which is the acceptance of the two-factor authentication, and the fraction immediately goes into the wallet. No dramas at all. So if you look at that little scenario, we've now succeeded in combining the firepower of both. You've got the coin, you've got the AR, you've got the merchants that can throw money into the AR with direct communication, and particularly using the notifications we've created, the instant notification if you like. You get the benefit of that to the consumer. So instead of blowing money of $200 billion to good old Mark Zuckerberg, that $200 billion can now go directly to consumers. But it doesn't stop there. It gets better. Wait for it. Wait for it. Steady, steady. The tokens created. Now you as a consumer in this app, version 2, you will get the choice to select the merchants you want to be communicating with. It's in your power this time, not the other way around, not where the merchants like Zuckerbergs and all that are sucking information out of you personally. Remember, nobody knows anybody personally in these apps. It's all designed by verification from the SplitChain and the signature tests that you have, like when you enter Zootopia. We don't store your personal information. Stripe does, not Zootopia. And that's for compliance of money issues, right? If you think about that now, you get the power in the app to select the merchant. You also get the power to have in your favourites list the type of products you want to see. They don't force them on you. They don't shove them down your throat. You are in full control of what particular items you want to see. Do you want to see some vanilla vouchers? Tick that box. Do you want to see some Zoo tokens or tokens created by merchants with product like the coffee? Could be TV sets, it could be anything you can imagine. Dinners out, drinks, whatever you want to, whatever it is, the merchants, shoes, the whole lot, the whole enchilada. You get to select that as your favourites. Now the merchant, not only can he drop them on a map for the hunt and collect, the old Pokemon Go on steroids, which works brilliant, but because of the notifications and because you've selected them as your favourite merchant with product, he can send them direct to your phone. Now, if you're sitting in Brisbane right now and you have selected as a favourite JB Hi-Fi, and they've come up with a deal today for $200 on a voucher that expires in 10 days, and that relates to money, real cash, off the phones in JB Hi-Fi or a video or whatever it is, they can send it directly to your phone. And you'll see it spinning in your phone when you click it, and up she comes, and you now put that particular token into your vault. Now, it doesn't end there. This is unbelievable. This is the greatest shift in money movement, interaction and utility, and we could be talking trillions of transactions coming back to the SplitChain, people. You can't do this in Bitcoin or Ethereum. It is dead in the water, what I'm describing. The blockchains can't cope. They can't get the throughput. They can't do all those things. But we can. And this means the more tokens you get out, the more fractions you've got, and the more interest in Zucoins, and the more people that are on the network, either through Zootopia or through Zukaz or through your own networks and through the developers and products and merchants, and it just goes on and on. It means one thing: demand increase in price. Now, you may not be interested in tokens and just interested in the fact that Dr. Zoo's now in his Gulf Stream. If Dr. Zoo's in a Gulf Stream, we know exactly where everybody else is. Big time. Remember, there will not be another crypto. As far as Dr. Zoo is concerned, and he's open for challenge, $500 in Zucoins can make a millionaire. $500 in Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana or Moderna, dead in the water. No more millionaires. That's it. It's over. Let alone the losses that have been incurred. I saw there was some real problems with Zcash last night. What a pump and dump that was. Went up through the roof, come down, got back on the exchange, OKX, they all dumped it and bang, and truckloads of money were made by the founders, and that's it. Everyone else is left scarred and battered and got nothing. Absolutely zip. Pump fund coins the same. They're all dribble. Dribble, and more dribble. Now, all of a sudden, let's say you're sitting there, you've received this JB Hi-Fi token. I'm not talking the ordinary voucher now, we're talking about the Zucoin token that's been created by the merchant that you have in your vault. You have it in your Zukaz wallet. It's there, you're looking at it. Doesn't expire for another 10 days. Now, you can either go and use it, it'll convert, QR code, across the counter, online, that's the redemption. Or now you can start to make money yourself. You can now put that token instantly and verifiable, just like your Zucoins, onto Zootopia. And you can trade it. Now you say, what's the value of that? Well, if that's a $200 cash voucher, that is as good as $200 in your back pocket. What you're looking for is someone else that has favourites with JB Hi-Fi or something and missed out on that offer. They didn't get the token, you did. Now you might sell that on Zootopia for $10, $20, $30, whatever it is. Even if it's $1. That's $1 more or $10 more in your back pocket than when you started before you got the notification of the token. We're talking a revolution in making money on all levels. Because if everything continues to go pear-shaped, and we're all looking for jobs because there's no AI's taken over, and AI's running the Iranian army and pressing buttons, who knows, we're going to need to, A, put some money together and make it, and B, have an open source concept that allows everybody the opportunity to do that. Not because Mr. Mark Zuckerberg dictates the terms of what's going on with Facebook and how to make money. Now, he's been a good boy. He's making, he's a billionaire, multi-billionaire. He's getting all this revenue coming in. But look what's happened in stage 2 of Meta. Because this is what doesn't happen in stage 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of Zucoins and SplitChain. Right? This won't happen because you don't care about whether the founder, Dr. Zoo, departed planet Earth for whatever reason, because the thing keeps going. It's decentralised. It's open opportunity for everybody to use the highway. That's how it's been designed. Everybody can become billionaires if they so have the initiative and the ideas and the creativity. And that's where I'm betting my money. I'm saying to you, and I've said it before in earlier Dr. Zoo, you wait and you see the women gender come out of the blocks with this. Because you don't want to know about all. I struggle to see some of the tech as well with what's happening with AI now. But there'll be some amazingly incredible creative ideas, and I'm suggesting it's going to come a lot out of the blocks from the women who are going to take the men on. And we might see some billionaire women. My daughters will take my son on, and good luck to them. They've got some pretty hot ideas about what to make money with and how to do it, and how to tokenise things that are quite innovative and revolutionary, but they can't get their hands on it because this whole crypto space and development world is tangled up with basically a bunch of guys and they play with it. Look at Ethereum. Freaking nightmare. Just even getting a wallet these days for crypto is a nightmare. And Mark Zuckerberg's no exception. But what's interesting is that this is a public company. Now, it's a structure that has some really interesting... In the early days, yes, you might want to tie down Mark Zuckerberg because you need that centralised brain, and he's making money, which people have made money. They've made a killing on the shares, don't get me wrong. The big investors have made a killing and still are. But in order to lock him down, and he hasn't been tested at any great lengths really as an ongoing manager, really what he should do is walk away. Now would be the time for Mark to walk away and let fresh ideas and other people to come in. That's my part. That's Dr. Zoo's view on this, because here we have a bloke who actually only owns 14% of the economic interest in Meta. You think about it, 14%. I mean, people have bigger interests in racehorses than 14% of a multi-billionaire billion company like Meta. But he's got 14%. But that 14% is quite crucial, because what the shareholders, the other shareholders, have done, that's the other 86%, who have all of the interest because they've got the biggest lion's share of the problems of the company that comes across the board, plus equity and all the things that come with it. He's only got 14%, right, of the total asset benefit of the company. But what they did is they got themselves caught and locked themselves into a fact that that particular blocks of stock gives him 61% of the voting control. 61%. Now, the last thing I want, or you want, or anybody wants, is an old aging Dr. Zoo controlling 61% of the entire direction of what Zucoins and SplitChain is all about. It's got to be freed up. It's got to be let loose. It's going to be a magnificent, glorious days as we're heading into that now. We're seeing a couple of developers already. It's unbelievable. Now, what you want is that you've got the ability to take and direct control over how your destiny is, whether you're just a current Zucoin early adopter that's going to make a killing, or whether you're one that's thinking through and seeing, you'll see the development docs and stuff, you want to run a node, you want to make money on the back of that, that is the split chain, or you decide that you can make money through tokenization, and you've got anybody with a basic, pure basic knowledge of just a website can help and assist with that, next to minimal cost, really. You're not talking the money that we have funded over the journey. AI alone now can build apps left, right and centre, if you know how to sort of talk to it and where you go, and that'll get only better and better. That's why, even in this instance, poor old Meta is looking to sack 20% of its workforce. Now, the second stage of Meta has been a train wreck to the detriment of the other 86% owners of Meta. Why do I say that? Why do I say that? Well, let's just have a look at a couple of little boxes that haven't been ticked by the poor old Mark Zuckerberg in his 14% ownership with 61% control, which means the board is locked out. People can't even, get into his office, to let alone to give him some ideas on what he should be doing, which is a real problem. Now, you may recall, and people forget pretty quickly, but in 2013, 6 million users' contact information was exposed in a major privacy breach that was involving Meta. And the Cambridge Analytica scandal, 87 million user profiles were harvested without consent by anybody for political targeting. Now, good old Mark Zuckerberg, lucky he's got a few bob in the bank. Well, it's not his bobs, it's 14% of his money, but he's using 100% of shareholder money, paid a $5 billion fine, settled a $727 million class action. Now, that's the start, I would say, of the downfall of what the value proposition for Mark Zuckerberg is. Then there's data breaches. In 2018, 50 million accounts were hacked. In 2021, leaked data was on 533 million users. Internal documents revealed that algorithms had misapplied information, created hate speech, and of course the big one, which has just come out and rearing its ugly head, teen mental health, suicides, etc., caused because of these platforms. He had an antitrust settlements he had to do for Instagram, WhatsApp and so on, so there's massive legal costs in the order of 500 million. And the big one, Mark comes up with the idea of metaverse. Now, I have been on record that was an absolute nonsense. I could not get my head on people, men and women, particularly women, putting this big lot of crap on your head to wander around somewhere that wasn't real and try and say you're going to generate interest and advertising out of that, called metaverse. Now, that's more of a gamification as far as I was concerned. I might have been old hat and old school, which is why I pivoted and made sure our organisation could immerse people in their day-to-day lives without the full throttle of ads and things coming at you all the time. The consumer's got to control that, and we don't want to give away our private information, which is what happens, especially now with these new laws. The Australian government came up with this bright idea, and there may be some merit in it about young kids being on these platforms. There's got to be a different way to stop them. But certainly now, across the board, these platforms will be demanding ID in order to prove not whether you're under 16, but whether, in fact, as a consequence, you're going to have to prove even if you're over 16. And all that does is dumps a heap of private information onto these platforms, ready for the attack by hackers, and we go around in circles. You can't trust the government to look after this data. That is the worst body of service to be putting anything on, and yet we have to. I mean, you can have a look at the website. I put up our original $4 billion case against the government, and it was caused because a number of government employees, and this is a report that was produced in 1999 by Ernst & Young, they were sharing passwords and access to the databases amongst each other in the government, Department of Finance. Now, if that's been going on and hasn't stopped ever since, it's not going to get any better. And of course, that's the only way in which Meta was going to make money out of metaverse. That's why it changed its name. But let me tell you what's happened. Remember, this is a bloke with 14% economic interest in Meta, with 61% control. And all of a sudden, what's he do? Comes up with this bright idea called Metaverse, Reality Labs, thinking that the whole world's population is going to be running around with headsets, running around playing with things to try and raise money only through one source being obviously data accumulation and advertising. And what does he do? He loses $83.6 billion since 2020. In 2025, he lost $19.2 billion. Now, that's not his money. 14% of that is his money. And there's not one single shareholder whinging at this point that they're on the road to nowhere. That's just Meta. In early 26, that's this year, there was another 10% layoffs with company-wide cuts that roughly accumulate to 16,000 jobs. Because then he has to pivot. So he's burnt his ass on 83.6 billion on metaverse, and now he's playing catch up with AI. So he's allocating 135 billion to AI, of which, again, let me remind you, at most 14% of that relates to his interests. The rest is all the other poor schmucks that have been put into the company. There's going to be another 135 billion burn rate because everybody's too scared to say this bloke knows what he's doing. I mean, lesser mere mortals would have been gone long ago. And I look at this, and I look at the potential revenues and what can happen and the consequences, and all of a sudden he's not happy with that. All of a sudden, he gets more penalties out of the European Union for unlawful data transfers because he's playing with the data, another £1.2 billion fine. He's got a verdict for child safety on the platforms in the order of 375 million, which is exploitation and child exploitation and the landmark case in Los Angeles last night. And that doesn't include the scams that are occurring on the site, because he can't identify phony ads either through AI, and they're projecting that 10% of the revenues he got in 2024, that's $16 billion, people, came from scam ads, illegal gambling and deceptive products. $7 billion on an annualised basis from fraudulent content. So you can't even trust what you're seeing and reading. In 2025, they had to remove 159 million scam ads. And this is the Facebook that people are using. There was 10.9 million accounts linked to criminal activity. There was 698 million in Q3 2025 alone of fake accounts. And they're still saying that fake accounts comprise 5% of users. And guess who pays for that? The consumer. The banks don't pay for it. Mark Zuckerberg's enjoying his life. He don't pay for it. It's all dummied information. I mean, in fact, the entire company should be wound up. That doesn't include the political behaviour of using those corporate funds for their end objectives in elections and things. Someone needs to wake up. But again, let me just tell you one thing, Dr. Zoo. It's poor planning from the beginning. Remember the old turtle and the hare? Little rabbit there, miles ahead, has a sleep and the turtle goes past. You guys have been patient, incredibly understanding. We get a couple of Fruit Loops out there, but that's all right. We've got to keep on our toes. But we have stuck to the original design. One day we'll produce the history of the projects from the back end in terms of what was involved and things we had to do to overcome. And those benefits will flow because you can give certainty to the product. You can tick the boxes on scalability. I'm talking SplitChain Zucoins here. You throw that in the mix with Zukaz. You, consumers, control and dictate the terms of what you want to see and do and how you behave with what the merchants put into you. Now, as part of that process, the boys have come up with this idea, which will be part of the Zukaz. As more and more merchants on board at their own free will, because it's all about avoiding the pitfalls of Meta, and Snapchat's the same, and TikTok's a train wreck. All these sites that we see, and brainwashing young kids under 16. You see all that happening. The control of your personal data, your information, that's all gone to the ether. And all of a sudden you've got this humble little project that says we only need to verify by virtue of the signature tests against the wallet. But you, as a consumer, are put in box seat because you can control what merchants you want to add as favourites. You will control what products you want to see and be part of favourites and cut them off instantly to knees if you don't like it. You get real value propositions. The consumer laws will make sure that the promotional side of these values are real and can be tested, because all of a sudden they're tested against the redemptions against the very merchants. There's no fraud in this instance because the consumer's not paying anything for either the vanilla vouchers or the tokenized vouchers or any of those things that entrap consumers to hand over any money, which is what happens on these platforms. That's why there's $201 billion, and that's why there's 5% fraudulent accounts, and that's why there's a massive surge in all the things that are wrong with Facebook in stage 2, because you've got a guy who's driven by one thing only, and that's his personal interests, with a 14% position and 61% control. Now let me just put this to you. We can take and test the best of what's out there, and the boys have come up and said the best way to give interaction to the masses who already understand how the technology works, and it never occurred to me until the last sort of 24 hours actually, But as you're selecting merchants, you get all the functions, right? You'll see all the merchants and you get the functions. You can search by industry category and product lines and all those sort of things. But at the end of the day, it'll become a competition of merchants to get your attention. And the way to do that is the humble swipe left or right. Now, I've got to say, Dr. Zoo, he's refrained from being on some of these Tinder sites and things, but the technology behind it is quite staggering. It generates that instantaneous, if you like, gratification of what you're looking at, left or right. You don't like what you see, you go left. As I understand, and the boys have been telling me this, and you go right if you want to participate with that particular, whoever's that profile that's come up. And there's no difference that hasn't been used or in a position that can be used in today's world of merchant-consumer relationship. But it can't be used by these big players because they're not interested in giving you any rights. They don't give a stuff. They want to suck at you dry with your information and use that and abuse that and then push to you all these things to increase the advertising, which is you imagine all these scam ads and some poor schmucky merchant's paying thinking he's getting 30 million hits or views and all the likes and all the rest of it, and there's none of them real. I mean, there's a 0.08% chance of success with any of these products. We know that for a fact. And when I talk about success is the moment you look at an ad, do you engage with that ad? Do you then buy from that ad? Do you then make your payment? And do you get delivery? There's a 0.08% success rate. When a merchant's there in a system like Zukaz, combined with the firepower of a token that can be verifiable on the chain, that creates massive utility with potentially trillions of transactions, that has an immediate impact on demand. That satisfies one of our group that takes on the Bitcoins in terms of looking at overall price, but more importantly, it becomes a powerhouse engine of value to consumer and merchant directly, which is what the internet was originally designed for. It wasn't designed for these schmucks to have these aggregated accounts and make a killing on so-called giving you, the lazy person, the right to deal with ads and merchants and things. Now, if you've accumulated these things, what I love, where this is heading, is that not only can you swipe left or right to get the merchant you want and put them in your favourites list and take them on and off as and when you see fit, but you'll also be able to swipe left and right for the products. So all of a sudden, you go into that section and there's massive amounts of products. Doesn't matter where you are. If you're sitting there at a bar in Queensland, on the Gold Coast, looking out the ocean, little slight breeze, tender soft bit of sun coming through, and all of a sudden you've agreed in the wallet that the Broadbeach Hotel on the corner, as you sit there, we're coming a bit south there now, but certainly down that way, you're sitting there, and the pub throws out this $20 tokenised voucher. You got two choices. It pings up on your phone, you press the button, it's in the wallet, you either go and use it across the bar, or you go on the line, you lock it in, load it onto Zootopia, and you sell it to someone else that's coming into the pub that might be floating around as a tourist and picks that token up for $2. That, people, is the future of where the internet's going. Preservation of data, your data. Putting you back in control, your data. Your rights, your control, and the power of the technology to allow that to happen. And the beautiful thing is, if you don't use that voucher, or it expires, or it's not sold on Zootopia, the merchant hasn't lost a dime. It's the reverse engineering of what should be happening. The merchant knows exactly what the success rate of that particular voucher or token is. 100%. Analytics will come in and say, listen, at Broadbeach there we dropped 200 $10 vouchers. We got 50% collected. We got 40% of those that were across the bar. We got 5% we can see for sale on Zutopia. Nobody has lost a dime. Nobody. Not one person has lost a dime. The consumer hasn't been ripped off. That's you and me. If you've got a business, you've got a target market. You know exactly to the second what's going on with those vouchers and tokens. That, people, is what we have been building up for. The team has been on this and has not been able to wait quick enough to get to this point. Because the great man, who'll go down in history really, not a guy that's a Mark Zuckerberg that knows how to code a few things and accidentally stumbles into it because he's created his Facebook, which is already floating around out there called MySpace. No, not a guy like that. We've got a Robert Novak that from the beginning, the inception, looked at this and mapped this out and said, that's the specs we want out. What do you want out? Well, I knew a lot about the back-end payment processing, but this guy, I mean, we're talking about Merkle roots the other day. I mean, he had this in place since 2002, and this is 2020. I had to refresh my mind. I had to take a few more tablets, get the brain working again. Dr. Zoo was tired, but no, not the great man Robert Novak. There it was, 2020 and 22 actually. Quantum computing. He's already mapped it out. By the time you guys are already rich and excuse me, running around, Robert's working on quantum computing. Bitcoin, excuse me, Bitcoin, blockchain, all of those are going to be in trouble with quantum computing. Now, I'll have a look at a couple of messages. I do love this this idea of these names being created. It makes it fantastic. So, Outgoing Soul, that was Dr. Zoo saying about, in 2024. He was an outgoing soul until I came back from the other side. I'm pretty sure that I did cross over. I like to think that I was heading up to heaven, and then my wife said to me, get back down there and sort this shit out. So I'm pretty sure that's what happened, but here I am. Got a great team of people, and we're building it to the point, as I said, you probably hardly ever remember Dr. Zoo in the future. It'll be all about what you guys can do and how you're going to interact and work with people to make serious money on all fronts, both as a merchant and consumer, which is how I want it. That's how Robert wanted. We want developers in there, which is happening. It's going to be an exciting, incredible phase. While everybody else is languishing around with worrying about AI and all the rest of it, it wouldn't surprise me that there's going to be people there that think about their degrees. If you're heading into university and you're sitting there in your second year law degree, you can throw that in the pooper. You've got that much AI now. I mean, you'd know more. AI knows more than the judges on the bench. It's an extraordinary journey we're heading into. So you've got to be careful. I looked at some AI technology on architecture and I thought, geez, imagine those poor buggers trying to design homes and houses when it was extraordinary, the things that you can do these days. Whole work programs. But anyway, on Monday, you stated there were no guarantees. This is from Grateful Being. Today, you're almost declaring massive prices. Well, thank you for that. The new confidence. The confidence never has ever left. I don't work that way. I've still got confidence after 26 years of burning the government's arse with the $4.3 billion damages claim. And then you compound that out with interest, and the best thing for me is in Dr. Zoo is increasing interest rates. Not good for everyone else, I can assure you, but that's probably nudging close to 40 billion when you think about the way equity works and how that claim works. And until the day the High Court says that Dr. Zoo's done and dusted, that is on the table. So it's not about any new confidence. It's just about fencing that confidence in within the parameters that we need and tick the boxes as we go. But certainly, I've been on the record for a long time. I've said it before, I'll say it again. On pure maths, the confidence comes because of demand and utility. That's what today's discussion was about, comparing it with something like the might of Meta. I mean, this guy's burnt $100 billion. He's lucky it's in the tin. I mean, it'd be shot to bits by now, but it's not all his. He's only got 14%. And he's blown $100 billion. How many chances do you get at that level? I mean, the entire project that we see before us, with the opportunity to get to the prices where I said at least my goal, Dr. Zoo's goal, is the Gulfstream G800 at $1,000 a coin. But I have said 20% of Bitcoin based on pure maths. We should be at 20% of the value of Bitcoin. I mean, even if Bitcoin's languishing where it is, and, you know, I'm a bit worried for poor old Michael Saylor, at least we haven't got the billions of dollars of debt that's floating around waiting for Bitcoin to go back up and having to buy more. It's a bit like a market manipulation, really. He's trying to hold the price. If you did that in a company and if a director was underwater in the share price based on margin calls and tried to prop up the price by buying, it'd be in jail by now. I don't know how that works with Bitcoin on these crazy exchanges, but anyway, that's the nature of the beast. We don't want to be like that. And we certainly, for the totality of the project at 50 million, I come back to the white paper when Mark tried to dabble into the crypto space with the Libra project, and he said back then, in order to create an autonomous, permissionless-based network, that's what we got, we've achieved it, blockchain trilemma, he said it cost $1 billion and 10,000 developers. Well, we're a little bit short of that. We're at 50 million with one developer. But now we get the firepower because the product can at least now be unleashed for developers to get involved, start to really play the game and make pockets of money on your own time because the highway is available to be used. There's no tollway. There's no tollway. You know, we don't need to be like good old Albo today in Parliament. One hand telling everybody that the problems of the world of Australia is caused by some Iranian, mullahs over there and a couple of Iranian thingos and causing problems. That's been going on for 47 years. Piss poor excuse that is. Basically, it's bad government policy for the last few years, depleting our reserves, not planning for anything, causing massive borrowings, putting it out in ridiculous projects. I mean, Jacinta Allen, another one in Victoria that's overloads it because at the end of the day, people in other states are funding her nightmare scenario, $200 billion of debt, and you're paying for it because of the GST, and the merchants are paying for it, and the consumers. And then Albo has a hide to say, oh, that's the fuel problem, but they're still collecting the excise taxes every time you go to the pump because they can't afford not to let it go because the policies are so bad. They need that income and funding all this, the fraud that's going on in the NDIS. Another incredible concept. But anyway, for another day. But Jacinta's a bit like Mark Zuckerberg. The only thing is she hasn't got any vested interest. She's just blown $200 billion of everybody else's money. Good old Mark's blown $80 billion of other shareholders' money. Same concept. I mean, there'll be a class action that'll come out of the blocks with this matter. It cannot continue. But then they did it themselves. If you're stupid enough to vote that Mark gets 61% control, then you're stupid enough to deserve what you get. If you're stupid enough to vote for the governments that we've got in play in the state and federal, Labor at the moment, don't get me wrong, I've seen the journey of the Liberals. There've been some hard-ass stupid decisions by that lot too. They don't come out of this clean skin. ScoMo, I've been on record about him. He had trouble focusing on one job. He ended up wanting 6. So let's not get carried away between the politics of different parties. I've got some big numbers in the journey of the $1 billion. We've covered every major Prime Minister since the court case started in 1999. Both sides of Parliament and both some extraordinary documents we've seen over the years in the journey of mismanagement. But the best solution, people, is that you'll see through the technology. I'm talking today about a couple of products. That's just a couple of products that we've been working on that can now come to fruition. What I'm inviting is that everybody can get involved. You'll be absolutely surprised. Even if, as I said before, even if you make a killing and you've got out and you've had a great time and you've sorted out your tax issues and all the rest of it, and you pay your tax, as sad as that is, you're going to give it to someone that you know is going to lose it. You take the risks, you put your money into Zucoins, you've burnt your ass, you've done everything you can to try and get those coins locked and loaded. You make a killing, and then what happens? Deep down in the bottom of your heart, you know that Albo or someone else in the government's going to lose it, the tax that they get. We know they're going to lose it. We've got to get used to that. But there will be mechanisms. There's going to be some really smart people come out. I can assure you, smarter people than Dr. Zoo, both in the finance area and everything else. I mean, I can give you one example. Someone approached me the other day, and it's not hard, legally and properly, that you may find there'll be institutions that love Zucoin so much because you've got two layers of fallback. You've got the original pricing and where that goes on demand. Talked about that, mass adoption around the world. And now we've talked about utility. We've talked about merchants and marketing and Zukaz as an example. That's just one case study. And how that could explode into trillions of transactions and move its way through to real world assets. Exactly what Larry Fink had said the other day in his annual report. Go and get it. Look it up. The biggest exciting opportunity for BlackRock is tokenization. It's coming. It's here. We're ready. Now, if you look at all that, the banks will get involved, the institutions, and they'll say, listen, what we want, we'll lend money. We'll lend money on the coins. Now, what you don't want a normal loan. You don't want a normal loan because you're in control. Just like the Zukaz environment, we want consumers in control. Right? You can use the laws of the land to force the merchants to do things. At the end of the day, you're not giving them anything other than you knowing you're going to get something from the merchant to be used at the merchant. If the merchant's not real, it doesn't matter because you're not losing anything. Now, the same can happen with the banking institutions. I mean, these guys, I get blown away sometimes with the contracts on the banks. That would be, if Dr. Zoo gets really bored, that's a focal point down the road. I won't talk about that now. It's getting time to wind up. But let me just say this. If you're in control and there's the power of Zucoins and the banks want institutional adoption and they need to lend against it, then what you can do things like a non-recourse loans. So in other words, the price has gone to $1,000. You've got $1 million in value. You want a loan against it. You borrow $1 million. Non-recourse. That means that if it goes down and it all falls apart, you don't have to repay the $1 million. You might have to pay the interest to a certain point. That might be in the contract. But you don't want any other risks. You don't want to end up going broke because the bank wants other securities. Forget that. You're in control. They want the deal, they get it. It's a bit like I keep saying to people. If you're interested in Zucoins, welcome aboard. If you're not, go and find some other hobby. Not here to force anybody to buy anything, particularly Zucoins, not here to force anybody to sell. You assess, you look, you buy. It's entirely a matter for the person that comes into the picture. Actually, I was on a conference call today, Dr. Zoo, and one of the great things about that was the analogy that comes back. People don't invest in Zucoins. You don't invest in the business. You buy the digital asset. When you go and buy that bottle of Grange from 1977, you've got two choices. You either drink it, enjoy it, it's gone. In other words, you can spend your Zucoins, or you store it, you leave it in the cupboard, price goes up, and you sell it. That's buying a digital asset. That's buying an asset. You don't buy the asset to work out and ring up the person and say, this is how you run the winery. This is the particular grapes we'd like this year. This is how many we'd like to grow. This is the spray we want to use. This is the tractors we're going to pay for. This is the shedding we're putting up. These are the kegs we're going to use. It's not an investment like Meta. The shareholders in Meta have invested in Meta and have lost all of their control and rights because of this ridiculous contract they signed up with 61% to Mark Zuckerberg, who's now doesn't even flinch. $100 billion. Think about it. $100 billion down the toilet, of which 86% of it is not his. That's the trouble with those startups and organisations and the way they get into it. But, if they're happy to wear it, then they've got to live with it. But it doesn't go on forever. What we're trying to build here, people, and I hope the direction you can see, that after we get out of our systems, the trading, and we see the price and what we're doing, and the team unleashes the beast with marketing that we've got in mind and everything that's going to happen, the value proposition is where we streak miles ahead. That's where the real second mouse takes that cheese, because our competitors are dead in the water. Bitcoin, mathematically, as I said earlier, I'm relying on the AI to say and analyse the complete structural technology architecture of both Bitcoin and Ethereum, it tells us they cannot scale in a million years mathematically. And worst case, you're relying on some dimwit to spend a lot of money, millions of dollars, with computers to simply tell you that they can validate your next transaction. They can put that next brick into the great wall of Bitcoin. It's an absurdity. It's an insanity. But anyway, that's where we want to be today. We've got Grateful Being is telling us that Facebook has the social scrolling component. Is ZooChat still going to happen to replace the social component? Well, we haven't talked about ZooChat. I won't touch on that today, but yes, there is a way through this technology on proving ownership, which is what SplitChain does. It proves basically the ownership of the wallet as well as it can prove the ownership of the tokens. It doesn't prove the identity, but it proves the ownership, which is a big difference. We'll talk about that another day. But there is no reason that someone with a little bit more time can sit back and build a decentralized ZooChat that puts the power of that back into the hands of the individuals, so that you can start to talk about eradicating bullying. And I mean, the trolls are amazing. I mean, they're just extraordinary. I love the trolls, but I can't play with them anymore. They go a bit quiet, and then when they threaten you with all sorts of stuff, they get a bit upset because you say, "Listen, hey, big balls, put your name on there, and we'll talk about it as we go into court." And they like hiding behind it and all the rest of it. But that bullying has effect on people as well. Those that don't like that or can't handle that, that's where the thing goes off the rails. And Mark Zuckerberg and all the others with those social platforms, and particularly the likes of X and so on, they don't care. Because you've got all these anonymous people out there that don't live or exist in real life. And they've got all these scammed ads and things. And some poor schmuck merchant is paying for it. Some real merchant thinking they're getting the attention of real people, and it's not there. So, friendly traveller, is there another app to be downloaded now? No, not yet. Not yet. When we switch that flick on back on Zutopia, that's the first one in April, which is just around the corner, people. You will be able to simply press the Zutopia tile that's inside your Zucoin wallet, and it'll take you and integrate and automatically log you in with a new Zutopia download app for trading, which is verifiable against the wallet. Remember, we don't take that information. We don't need your personal information. If you're starting to buy or sell, well, that's a different story, because that's where Stripe needs that information legally and to be compliant around the world. Great Legend. Very happy with my auto-generated nickname. Well, that is one for the records, Great Legend. And let's hope you become an even greater legend, and we can share your story about the journey of Zucoins. And I do love Mysterious Newbie. I think he is. It was a wonderful movie there with the Wolf of Wall Street, Johanna Hill, from memory, and that was quite a funny moment in that. So yeah, thanks for the Giphy, absolute cracker. Well, people, let's sign off. Try and do a bit of your own homework out there as well. Well, let me just wrap this one. I didn't see this one here further up here. We've got Intrigued Stranger. How apt is that? I mean, if you ask a question of Dr. Zoo and you're intrigued and you end up with the name, I don't know. That's mind blowing actually. But anyway, can Zucoins in time be incorporated into a treasury company similar to what Michael Saylor has done with Bitcoin and his? Look, there is no doubt that any company, even today, can take a treasury roll of Zucoins right now. Whether you borrow against it or whether that company sits on it and they park it, as I said, 10 Zucoins will make a difference to your life. If you'd have had 10 Bitcoin when they were at 1 cent or even $1 for $10 or even $10, Well, even let's jump around a bit. Let's say $1,000. That takes us into the first 4.5 years of Bitcoin's life, really. If you take that price, then you've paid anything from $1 to $1,000 for 10 Bitcoin. And you had the long-term approach, exactly like I said. You had the long-term Grange. It was in the cupboard. You forgot about it. You didn't stress. You didn't worry about trading and prices and all the rest of it. Then you'd be sitting on $700,000 today. Even today, with all of the ruckus that's going on. So a treasury doesn't necessarily have to be a big treasury. Treasury could be you've just parked it, put it on a USB, put it in an envelope, left a note on the back of it and said, for the kids, left it with your lawyer. That's a treasury. If a corporation wishes to expand that and have a few more, then they can create their treasuries. The real difference between a treasury in that sense and a Michael Saylor treasury is that he's used everybody else's borrowed money to create the treasury. That's the danger zone. That's what can bring you unstuck, and that's what happened in the 80s. We had the great Robert Holmes à Court sitting on a massive stock position in BHP from his Bell Group, and the moment it went the other way, the 87 crash, from memory, in Australia, it was the 19th of October. Remember it well. It's when I got rid of all my tax problems, as in Dr. Zoo's tax problems. They all went. Then certainly you run into problems when you have massive borrowings. And the debt instruments they have, they can call them whatever they like. They can call them debentures and bonds and convertible notes and whatever else you want to call them. But at the end of the day, they are a death trap for the person borrowing, because they have to be paid back at some stage. And if that is what's happening now, where Michael Saylor is clearly underwater, his massive holdings, I think it's 731,000 odd Bitcoins, he's underwater, and he needs that price to go up. And you keep reading about Michael Saylor, you hear that he's buying another X number of coins each week. That's a desperate attempt to try and prop the price because there's no way in hell there's going to be 10 million new Bitcoin owners coming into play to buy 10 Bitcoins. That ain't going to happen, because the system was never designed for that. But, as I said before, if you've got the capacity, which we have, to handle the transactions on the chain, you've got the capacity to issue millions of wallets, you've got the capacity for people to be patient, then there's no reason that 10, 20, 50 million people can't download a Zucoin wallet and buy $5 a week or $10 a week of Zucoins, and the accumulation takes over. And that's a massive retail floor, as in ground, that supports it, rather than Michael Saylor looking for another BlackRock to come in and take him out and create more ETFs and create more people buying those things in a market that's shaky at best, because no one knows what the hell's going on with Iran and whether this is going to get worse. I don't think it'll get better. But that's when the pressure comes on the share markets. And that's when it gets sticky, real sticky. So look, thanks everybody. Dr. Zoo, I really do want to, for Dr. Zoo and the team here, the marketing team, the developers, Rob, everybody, and the contacts now and the new developers that are floating around and things they've got in mind they're going to do in the area of gamification and stuff that we're not doing. It's fantastic. Cannot wait to unleash the beast. That's Zootopia. That satisfies that last condition of the true marketplace, and it doesn't have anybody running it really. It just bubbles on itself. It'll make money from data, which is data that's not identifying anybody, but data that's location based, and we'll make money through that. Then, of course, Zukaz is the next cab, and it looks spectacular. It looks spectacular. I'm really so excited that the awards that Zukaz received over the years for business innovation, marketing, will come to fruition, because the technology is just going to make that next upgrade absolutely spectacular. And I can tell you now, you as a consumer will thoroughly enjoy it with merchants that are coming out, because the competition means merchants will have to compete to get your attention, for you to lock and load what you want to see and what you want to put on your vaults, both in terms of ordinary vouchers as well as tokenized vouchers of value identifiable on the chain as I said, even for resale through Zootopia. Thanks everybody, been fantastic. Look forward to Monday. Let's hope we're all still here on Monday. Let's hope that not more bombs than we need to see in Iran going off, because we don't want that spreading too much. We just want to localise it to Tehran, and we'll see how that all pans out, because we do have a loose cannon with Donald. Donald gets angry and it all goes pear-shaped, but let's see. Have a great weekend. Look forward to Monday. Cheers everybody.